always wish there was more of a community where you could go to find like-minded consciousness people, because I do think that it doesn't take a lot of people to come together to meditate, to be conscious, to shift the world. If you work really hard, you get the trophy, then you will be happy. If you do all these things, the outer goal is happiness, and then you want the next thing. And then if I get that, then I'll be happy. When happiness is there the whole time.
Used by high performance coaches and people learn about. They were smoking
Yeah.
their weed or they were having their mushrooms or whatever else they were on. When they moved into those states, the realization they come to is we're all one. On the hieroglyphs of Egypt, there's pipes depicting the use of the blue lotus flower, and the priests smoking the flower to connect to the gods and to connect to the afterlife and to this wisdom.
So now I'm sitting up straight. Oh my God, did I just sit up straight because I was self-conscious because I was talking about my life?
Welcome to Elevated Conversations. Today in the show we have Peter Facinelli, actor, writer, producer, father of four, and a very busy guy in Hollywood. Really shining in Twilight as the doctor slash stepdad, regular appearances in Nurse Jackie, going on to star in Scorpion King, Supergirl, many other amazing projects. But we talk about the focusing of the mind, how to expand consciousness, and how we learn and grow through this life as we continue to focus on expansion. It's a fascinating chat, and we hope you really enjoy Peter Facinelli.
Whole conversation up by sort of saying, we want to have an elevated conversation, and talk about real things and real topics, because I'm sure you've probably had yourself in a situation where you're cornered by someone and they're talking about, the news or the weather or the sport or something else. And
Yeah.
you wished you could have had a real conversation. Have you sort of noticed that now through your journey?
Well, I mean, I tend to think every conversation is real, but it depends on what you want to talk about. But I do think consciousness is a higher elevated conversation for sure.
So yeah, we'd love to hear your story. How did all of your awakening begin? Has it always been there through your life?
Well, I'm still kind of in the process of it myself. Still searching, always searching. Sometimes too much, because I'm all like, you always get bombarded with all this different stuff. I've been fascinated with the brain, so like I've studied hypnotherapy because I feel like there's different brain waves there. You're mostly in beta, but if you drop down to alpha or delta, then you can give suggestions and you can do self-hypnosis. I think most self-talk is self-hypnosis. You either, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So and I do believe that when you put your mind and energy and awareness on something, it's very powerful and it grows. And if you put it on the wrong things, that grows too. So just being more conscious and of what I want to put my consciousness on, and being more aware when the system takes over and you're on autopilot, and your brain's just kind of moving a million miles an hour, and you're going, wait a minute, I don't want to waste all that energy. Let's harness it. And so at times I'll go, when that happens, I'll go meditate. So when I was younger, I studied transcendental meditation. So I guess it started there.
Yeah.
When I was in my early 20s, I was able to do a class at NYU, and at NYU they let you pick what you want to study at this program that I was in, and I said, I've always been interested in transcendental meditation, just reading about it and hearing about it. So I was able to do a whole course on transcendental meditation and study it and learn it. And so I started with that. I wish I practiced it more. I've tried different variations of meditation. But I think you have to go in order. I think that the world kind of has it backwards. They look at the reflection of life and then they react to that, as opposed to creating your life, and then allowing the reflection to come, on the outside.
Mm.
And that's hard because that's all we've been taught is, whatever's on the outside is what's real and what you should react to. And so just being able to know that that's just a manifestation of what was, and what is can change that, and being able to go within and live within the moments that I want to live in, and then allow those seeds to grow. I think there's also instant gratification. So like if you don't see it right away, then you start to react off of the outside. I guess it's a fine balance of like, no, that was what was in yesterday's seeds, and today's seeds are now, they have to take a minute to grow. So to stay constant in those seeds, and then be patient while those seeds blossom.
Mm.
Yeah. It's interesting how those principles about the brain and mind that you've been talking about often get used by athletes, and they get used by high performance coaches, and people learn about mental rehearsal, and they learn about focusing the mind before a big event so that they can perform well under pressure. Yet so often in day-to-day life, no one really talks about mindset that much, or talking about slowing the brain down and actually focusing on perhaps what people do want to have happen rather than what they don't. Yet that seems to play out so much in life, and so much of the top performers often talk about how so much of their success is more mental than it is physical,
Yeah, I think it is all mental. I mean, look, all of reality isn't happening inside of your mind, right? So if you see a tree, where do you see the tree? It's not over there, it's right here, because you're experiencing it in here. So, everything is mental. And so it's so important to mentally rehearse. And, a lot of times, just for example, like if I have a line in a movie and the dialogue is tripping me up, and I start thinking, oh, that's a really tough bit of dialogue there. Inevitably on the day, I'll trip up on that dialogue until I learn to go, oh, you know what? I'm going to have fun with it. I'm going to play with this dialogue. And then I'm like, oh, I have to trick my mind into enjoying it, and then making a game out of it, and then going, oh, that line of dialogue that I hate, I've actually am now having fun with. And I can't wait to actually say that line, And then all of a sudden it'll be good, because it's like the minute you start tripping yourself up with self-doubt and doubtful talking and limitations, that's when, you set them in your life. But honestly, like the hardest thing is being conscious of that, and catching it, and then being able to, be aware that it's there. Because look, if you say, don't think of a pink elephant, you're going to think of a pink elephant, so you can't sit there and say, I don't want to think that that's hard, or I don't want to think that that's gonna be bad. Like you're gonna think it's bad by saying you're not thinking it's bad. So you have to find ways to allow that feeling to be like, okay, that's scary, that's that worries me, but now I'm gonna make a game out of it, or make it fun, or make it something else. Because taking your awareness off of something is a lot easier than saying that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? If you want chocolate, then think chocolate. Don't think, I don't want vanilla. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
And have you been using, let's say, have you been using goal setting, using visualization in envisioning, like for your career and your personal life? Have you been applying things like that?
Well, I think earlier on I did more so, and then I got into a point in my life where it was like allowing things to just come. But I do want to get more focused on where I want to go, because I think, if there's no captain at the ship, then you're just the ship's just going in circles a lot of times. So it's
Yeah.
fun to say, I'm going to let the sea take me where ever it wants to take me. But it's a lot easier if you have a destination in mind, and you tell the sea where you want to go, and then the winds will carry you.
Yes. And isn't that a beautiful dance between uh, using our grey matter brain to try and work out where we think we want to go and what outcomes are going to give us fulfillment, but then
Yeah.
also learning to listen to our higher self or our intuition and to let life bring us perhaps opportunities and situations that are beyond what we could have possibly imagine based on past experience, because that's all the brain really does, right? Gathers past experience and information, comes up with solutions. But very often there's synchronicities and things are in the right place at the right time, and breakthroughs can often seemingly fall into our lap. Yet the way in which we've been focusing our mind and our mental energy has been influencing that. That's a real delicate one to navigate, isn't it? Because we've got to do
Yeah.
some action. We've got to meet the energy halfway.
Well, I think it's the matter of, like you said, it's when you feel like the past is going to carry you, then those past events limit you, right? But if you start to focus on what the future events you want it to be, then those things, just like focusing on the past brings you to where you are in the present based on that information. The information that you focus on, in the future, then it sends you that information. And that's when you start to get those synchronicities. And sometimes it's not exactly how you planned it, but it's like, the universe will give you it co-creates with you, you know what I mean? So it gives you what you need. And I'll sometimes do these fun experiments and I'll think to myself as a game, the universe, I think, loves a good game. So I'll say to myself, you know what? In the next 3 days, I'm going to see a blue duck. And, I don't know where, I don't know how. And I'll wake up in the morning and I'll think, I wonder when I'm going to see a blue duck. And I'm kind of looking for it. I wonder when I'm going to see a blue duck. And within 3 days, I'll see a blue duck. And it might be not what I thought it was going to be. Like it happened to be when I played that game. My daughter came to my house with a brand new hat. It was a blue hat with a yellow duck. I was like, okay, I'll take it. I said, blue
pretty
duck,
close.
there's blue on the hat and a yellow duck. It's close enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
What was the other one I
Number
played?
one.
Yeah, I played this other game. Oh, I said, I'm just gonna see a red snail somewhere, and I'll just make up things that I want to kind of call into existence, as a game. And so, it was day one, I didn't see anything, and that's kind of hard. And I'm looking around, and you can't go looking for it too hard because otherwise you're not letting the universe create with you. I could easily go to a place where a snail would be and look for a red snail. But I was looking for one, and I thought, oh, maybe it'll show up in one of my kids' toys, or maybe a book that I read so I'm reading a book for my kid, and I'm thinking maybe it'll show up here. It didn't. And then I thought maybe it'll show up, outside somewhere. And I was walking my son somewhere, and there was a little village of under a tree, like someone created a little village, and it was all these little people. And I thought, I'm gonna find it here, And I looked and I didn't see it. And I thought, oh, that's so weird. If I thought I was going to see it anywhere, it would be in this little village of like little people, right? Under a tree in the middle of nowhere. Like they had like little mushrooms and little tiny statues. I thought, wow, I really thought it was going to be there. Okay. And I walked about a block and there was a little rock garden, and my son ran over to it and picked up a rock. And there was a little toy snail that had a red shell.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't where I thought it was going to be at all. But it was like, he led me to it. You know what I mean? So I like playing those games because they're small stakes and you're like, oh, if I play these fun little games, I get to co-create with the universe in a fun way that's low stakes. And I do it all the time. Like, I played another one where I was like, I'm gonna see a purple car, and purple cars are hard to find,
Yes, they are hard to
Very
find.
Threw it out
rare.
there. And the next day I got into a car to go to work, and when I got in the car, the lights dimmed and the whole dashboard lit up purple. And
Oh,
I thought, okay, I'll take it. You know what I mean?
just goes to show that's like you setting the intention, manifesting and letting go on a micro scale. imagine what the enormity of manifestation
Yeah.
on a macro scale, really. You know, the
Yeah.
field of everyone manifesting the Great Awakening, for example, or ascension or healing. You know, it's really feeling more evident for us, especially with the healing and different modalities. And we know that you may have gone into journey with Mother. Is that
Oh, I
correct?
did an ayahuasca treatment. You know, I didn't feel as connected to it as I thought or wanted it to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the blocks were, although I tried to take some messages from it because I went to an ayahuasca ceremony. I had no idea what to expect at all. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know, and I was very excited, you know, because I've heard so many incredible things about it. And you know, I did a full cup of it, and it was with 9 or 10 people I did not know.
Yeah.
And then I felt like people started getting sick, you know, and throwing up. I didn't get sick. I kind of feel like I have a stomach of steel because my dad has a stomach of steel. So like I was like, and I feel like maybe I have a high tolerance for hallucinogens because when I was like 19, you know, I wanted to hallucinate. My friends had this pure acid, and I was like, I'm gonna try it because I've never tried it before. And I took some, and I felt nothing. It was like
Oh.
literally nothing. A whole tab. And I went an hour and a half later, 2 hours later, nothing. And then I said to my friend, you know, I don't feel anything. Can I take another one? And he said, no, it'll hit you. And I said, no. Another hour went by. I felt nothing, and people were tripping. So I ended up taking another one. And then I felt like, you know, I hallucinated. And the same with mushrooms. Like I've been, somewhere where mushrooms, my friend would take 3 caps of a mushroom and be like, the stars and the sky's opening up. And I'm like munching a whole bag and like nothing, like literally nothing.
So does it just affect you later? Like is it a delayed?
No, it just felt like it didn't, like I had a glass of wine, like, you know, and I had a whole
Oh.
bag. So I think my tolerance level is a lot higher, maybe. And so I had the cup and I didn't feel anything. So I was kind of felt like I was just sitting in a room with people that were sick.
Yeah.
And so then about 3 or 4 hours later, you're allowed to take another cup. And so I kind of went over to the shaman and I said, listen, I don't feel anything. And they said, well, you have to let go, you know, let go and try another cup. And maybe part of me was holding on, and I took another cup, and I felt at that point like my skin kind of felt like it was on fire, like
Yeah.
almost like, you know, uncomfortableness, you know, which I
Mm.
didn't like.
Yeah.
And I saw like a grid of numbers
Yeah.
and like the Matrix, almost like, you know, those pads of numbers, and like you can almost kind of see through this matrix. But I also felt like I was being protected. Like I kept seeing my grandmother,
Mm.
and I felt like so many people were in such agony in the room and like crying and throwing up, and I felt like there was a lot of purging going on, and I didn't want to be affected by the purging of other people that I didn't know, so I was kind of afraid of it.
Yeah.
And I felt like my grandmother was protecting me with this white bubble of light. So in a weird way, what I got from it was, you know, I felt protected from the other side. I felt like maybe, you know, I had a wonderful, beautiful childhood, so maybe there wasn't as much for me to heal in my childhood. Um, but then I could have been just holding on to stuff too and not wanting to fully release, or maybe I just didn't get enough fully of the ayahuasca because I have a high tolerance to stuff. So, you know, it might be an experience I might want to try again in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Good on you for taking the leap of faith and jumping into circle, because a lot of people, you know, are still very scared of it and learning, you know, that they lean into psilocybin or, you know, bufo DMT, but you know, the
Yeah.
entering into that circle, it's a brave and courageous, you know.
I basically gave up the first time I tried it. I had
Yeah.
like 2 cups, and the story between you and I, it's like the same thing. Chaos in the room, people rolling around and purging and etc. I wasn't sick, and I lay there and I thought, this isn't working, you know. And I was
Yeah.
trying to meditate. I was trying to let go, but you don't know how to when you don't know how. And eventually I just thought, you know what, I'm going to pull up the blanket and just close my eyes and see if I can sleep. And as I decided to give up and pull the blanket up, I felt like there was a light now on, like someone had put on a lamp in the room. But my eyes were closed and my head was under the blanket, and I went, oh, it's starting to work. So when I only felt, and this is like you're saying, 4 hours later, I only felt it start to work when I went, you know what? Stuff this, it didn't work. I've come all this way. You know, I wasn't real relaxed with it. I was a lot of shit, you know, I'm gonna go to sleep.
I think because also there's expectations too, like, oh, I'm gonna see something, and how come I'm not seeing anything? And there's no spirit animals, and there's no weird. So, but I did see this grid, and I did the same thing. I kind of was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go to sleep, and I kind of pulled the covers over my head, like, and that's when I started seeing the grid, you know.
And I know the grid that you speak of. I've seen the grid as well, and your matrix description I could completely relate to. And I loved the bit about feeling protected. You know, that feeling of protection, because you know, Mother Ayahuasca is obviously mother, a female energy, and that feeling of protection. And often people call Mother Ayahuasca the grandmother. So these symbols, that feeling you were getting, you know, it was beautiful. And you know what Roxy and I did without knowing what we were doing, right, is we signed ourselves up for a retreat where you have to do it 4 nights in a row.
Okay.
So when I eventually, and after the first cup, right, when I had nothing, I walked, and you're not supposed to sit, you know, near your partner or talk to them, but I broke a couple of rules. I went, how are you going? You know, in the lineup to get the second cup. And she's like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm at the carnival and there's colors and lights and it's amazing. So we went up and had a second cup. And it eventually worked for me, but after Roxy had the second cup, it pushed her over the edge, and she went and did some deep work.
Very deep work. I didn't want to go back for night 2, that is for sure. I was trying to get out of it because I was so scared. It took me to a dark night of the soul and it broke me, but it had to break me to build me, you know, and we've learned so much with the medicine. That's, you know, it's deep in our hearts, that healing modality. Yeah. Have you tried any other? Oh, you go ahead.
I was going to ask you, do you feel like you have this awakening, this lesson? Because I haven't had that big of an epiphany like that. And, you know, I've searched for stuff. I mean, I've had ego deaths with other things, you know. But do you feel like it's easy to then come back and just kind of live in the illusion again and forget the, you know, what you've learned? Because it's almost like your brain has this default mode that it wants to forget. You know what I mean? Like, just take the, you know, the blue pill, or don't dive deep in and just stay in the illusion, you know? Do you find that?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Constant work to say, oh, I got to keep myself not in the illusion.
50% of the work, we believe, after a medicine journey is integration.
Yeah.
So taking what you just learned and taking it slow and implementing it, right? And I don't think a lot of people have that space or time to integrate, because it's like you come back from the retreat and it's like straight back into mum or dad role, you know, work mode, acting, producing. And it's like, I don't think that we have enough space for true integration. So that's why it's very important to make sure that you do have space. And then you get the lessons, I believe.
And how do you create that space in a world that just is constantly a treadmill of go, 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 and your family's like hasn't been on the journey, so like they're expecting you to just leap back into that role that you're playing? I mean, how do you create that space to integrate?
Well, I mean, I could first of all completely relate to all of those points that you made, because when we went the first time, we were actually insurance brokers. So we did mining insurance, and we had
Mhm.
staff and an office, and we go to ayahuasca and, you know, go through these 4 nights of ceremony. And on the airplane going home, I just had this moment where I turned to Roxy and I said, I just don't think we can do insurance anymore.
Mhm.
Like the thought of going back and trying to get insurance for a big truck, it just seemed like it's not something I was interested in at all. And that took us down the path of wanting to sell our business and move out of what we were doing, sort of into what we are doing now. And it wasn't easy, you know, and I'm sure you can imagine, you know, when we started talking about this more and more, you know, we weren't getting invited to barbecues as much as we used to. A lot of the family thought we were quite
Yeah.
strange indeed. The LinkedIn went quiet all of a sudden online, you know, like you kind of had to, it wasn't like a simple transition. It was something which, and to answer your question, just started with, let's call it just simple daily practices that we did regularly, so they became a new way of life. You know, so in other words, beforehand, we weren't meditating as much as we used to, you know. So it was very much, we started with, let's call it personal development, and we knew that motivation was very important, and we knew we had to write down goals, and meditating would be great as well. But it was sort of from that aspect. And after we went through this change and this breakthrough to what we would sort of call it a spiritual awakening, it's like basically you had this moment where you realize you're a soul in a physical vessel having this experience, you know, the numbers, the matrix you talked about. You see that, of course, we know everything's energy. And as to your point right at the start of our chat, it's energy swirling around out there. And it's only that we've got eyes that see from red to violet, and we've only got ears that hear from 20 to 20,000 hertz. And we're picking up on little parts of this vibration and frequency, formulating the world in here. But behind it is this bigger lesson for a soul to learn and grow. And to live in that state, we had to almost like set an alarm clock. I need to meditate today. I need to do some exercise. It was like a to-do list, but it was a list that sort of helped to keep us on that path. And you wander all over it. You know, someone has a birthday party and you go and, you know, you get around everyone and you eat and drink and be merry. And then you think, oh shit, I've wrecked all that progress I did, you know, and you've got to recover and forgive yourself, because it's okay to be human. Like, because sometimes the guilt you give yourself about too many glasses of wine is actually worse than the glasses of wine themselves, right? It's the guilt. So you've got to go, gosh, okay, I did that, but now back on track. And we had one another, which really helped. Like, we were on the same path and direction, but it was a process. And I think that your question is a good one, because it doesn't just like magically happen. But one thing I would say is very much like something I can relate in you and the way you're describing things, is there was always this fascination that there must be more, you know, to life and to things and to existence. And I just kind of kept following that thread, and that sort of led us to where we are now, and, you know, these great conversations.
Well, I think what happens is everyone's in the pursuit of happiness, and they always think, and we're taught in school, if you do X, Y, and Z, you will get this, and then you'll be happy. If you work really hard, you get the trophy, then you will be happy. If you do all these things, the outer goal is happiness. And it's a society that's built this happiness as this unattainable, because as soon as you get that, you're like, now what? You know, and then you want the next thing, and you're, oh, if I get that, then I'll be happy. And then if I get that, then I'll be happy. So you just keep chasing your tail, when happiness is there the whole time, you know, and it's not something you chase. It's just that, you know, you create happiness from within, and then happiness attracts happy things, right? So, I wish that we were taught that, because it's a broken system that we're taught. And doing is taught, and I've worked against it my whole life, because I was taught that doing is the goal to life, instead of being. And I think once you're in a state of beingness, life is, time and life moves through you, as opposed to like you're going through time in
Mm,
life.
mm,
Um, so I feel like we don't have to go anywhere because we're already here. Everything, it just comes through us and to us, and we don't have to chase, and we don't have to look for happiness, and it's always there. So those are the things that I know on the inside, but then you get stuck in the world on the outside. This is like, no, you got to go do, you got to go, do, and you got to go chase, and you got to get this thing. And oh, if you don't have this, then you don't have the car, you're not going to be happy. If you don't have the latest iPhone, you're not going to be happy. And so it's that madness in that world that keeps you on the hamster wheel. And it's hard to balance that and go, no, that's not going to make me happy.
yeah, totally agree. And the ego, the masculine energy is in that force and that, go, go, go.
Mm.
And that divine feminine, we've all been programmed to not stop, to not rest. When, we're going through a hard time or an emotion, it's expectation to show up to work and society, like you said. And I
Yeah.
think that if everyone is taught the male and feminine energies within the soul, because we all have both, the balance of this planet would be a lot better, you know.
Yeah.
Teaching our kids, and you mentioned you've got some kids as well, and how we can help move that down into generations, and just gently, mention the masculine, the feminine energies within them, so they're aware of that. I think parents have to start to implement it in their own home. The system isn't changing, I don't think, anytime soon. I mean, there are
Yeah.
alternatives, but that those come with difficulties and challenges as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, I always wish there was more of a community where you could go to find like-minded consciousness people, because I do think that it doesn't take a lot of people to come together to meditate, to be conscious, to shift the world. They say it's a small percentage of people that can come together, that can actually change things and move the world just through, they've done studies where they've gotten groups together in certain states where they've gotten people together to meditate, and the crime has gone down, or people have gotten less sick, or like prayer groups, or a big thing, because prayer is meditation. And um, I find it's very helpful. My brother-in-law recently got hit by a car while he was riding his bike. Yeah, he's a bicyclist, and it didn't look good. His first day, the doctors didn't know if he was going to make it or not. And we did a lot of meditation and a lot of asking for prayers, a lot of people coming together. And so many people did. And the miracles I saw him as he healed, and now it's been like maybe a month and a half, and he was up and walking again in like 3 to 4 weeks. He had like 20 ribs broken, and his eye was swollen shut, and it did not look good. He had a liver that was cut, because the bone had jammed into his liver. It was bad. And I did this meditation. It was really interesting. And I remember seeing these blue butterflies that were like filled in the room with him, just this vision of blue butterflies all around him. And I felt like this glowing light around him. And it was like the third day. And I told my sister he's going to be fine. He's already healed. I felt like he was healed in that meditation. And then I told my sister about the blue butterflies, and she had started a prayer group earlier that morning, and she had used the blue butterfly symbol, unbeknownst to like me, having that vision of blue butterflies. And then this blue butterfly symbol kept popping up everywhere, everywhere for like weeks. My daughters went to this butterfly zoo, and they sent me a picture, and there's a blue butterfly on her shoulder, and they didn't know the story at all. They weren't like, hey, look how cool. Like, they were just like that. We went to the butterfly zoo, take a look at these pictures. And there's like a big blue butterfly on her. And
Yeah.
so I just think that, yes, we're all one, we're all connected. There's so much power and energy when we can harness it, when we can pull it together. And like the global consciousness of the world, when it's off and it's focus is off and its awareness is on, pollution and war and devastation, that tends to grow. So if we only understood that, if we all come together and we can, meditate on peace and meditate on on a earth that we all want to live in, is that's the earth that we can create, and it sounds to other people like witchcraft and voodoo and
Yeah.
a lot of like culty stuff, but it's like, listen, people go to church and they pray and they have religions, and religions it's spirituality. It's connecting with the oneness of the universe. And if you want to call him God or Allah or whatever you want to call him, there's a lot of power behind it. And so taking that spirituality and being able to, whatever you believe in, bring that believability to together, because together we can create so much. I mean, look at what we're creating individually, or when the two of you team up to create something, or even, I was going through the airport recently in this form. I was in Istanbul and Uzbekistan. I was traveling the world, and I was looking at the airport thinking, my God, look at these buildings that are like 30, 40 feet high. If I had to build this by myself, I could never do it. This took a team of people that worked together to create this, or these beautiful mosques in like Uzbekistan that I went to visit that were just incredible artistry. And you're thinking, one man could never do this. And it took people to come together to create, and anything that's done on a grand scale like that takes many people to come together. And yet we don't come together in a level of consciousness, you know what I mean? In a group of people that are looking for, and when you say put your intentions on a future, what if we all came together and put our intentions on a future Earth that was really wonderful and beautiful and sustainable and peaceful, and we could create that if we all got together. I truly believe that.
I
Yeah.
believe it too. And like it works in the opposite way with the negative. Of course, it's going to be, the
Yeah.
polarity of that on the positive end, right?
Well, because there's so much masculine energy on the planet at the moment, and it's particularly active in deceit and underhanded and corrupt, and people more and more are questioning, authority. It's like I was reading an article where they talk about the respect that children have for teachers changing nowadays compared to, I can remember when I was at school. It was you weren't disrespectful to the teachers. The politicians people listen to, or the police force, or the this, the that. But these days things are changing and shifting, where it's at the point where people can't be sure whether they can trust big media or not. They're not sure whether they can trust their politician anymore. They're not sure who to listen to. So some people get themselves into a state because they're looking for the answer that everything's going to be all right outside themselves, right? Like you were saying, if everything else out there is right, then I'll be happy. Where a lot of the people who see this all going on often find that when they get happy within, they don't actually get so triggered or upset about the politicians doing their thing anymore. They're so triggered and upset about, it's obvious that certain brands get promoted on the television and there's certain agendas getting pushed, and et cetera, but they don't get that upset because they've got their inner world right. So for the average person, while I would say the vast majority would agree we'd love a world of peace and more harmony and everyone working together, a lot of people don't know how to get there. So they go back to their old pattern, their old program from their upbringing and the people they were around, where they get angry or they try to use force or outward expression. This isn't right. We should change things. Everybody should do this or do that. But really, it starts with every single person as an individual finding some peace within, some happiness, some fulfillment, having more gratitude for the things that they've got in their life. When they're healthy and happy and they've got some loving people around them that care, they could start with that. That's how the individuals who are in that state then come together, and the
Yeah.
power of that combined energy is so much greater when each of the individuals have done the inner work as well. And
Yeah.
that's what we need to inspire people to
Cool.
do.
Thumbs
I,
Because
I, I wonder if the way your wife, when she was going through ayahuasca,
yes,
there was a breakdown that you had to go through in order to get to the other side. And sometimes I wonder if that's what we're doing now. Like maybe there's a breakdown of this illusion of this, when there's a lot of chaos happening, maybe in a weird way, it's a necessary evil to, to go get through that shadow work, to create new ways of living. I don't know, but I mean, I feels like there has to be a purpose for it because you feel the energy and the chaos and it's scary and it's a lot of divide and it's a lot of people combating and you can't say I like oranges without people saying, what do you mean you don't like oranges?
yeah,
You don't like oranges? Why don't you like it? You don't, I like apples. And you're like, everybody's fighting over these things and it becomes like you're afraid to say anything. And it's like, maybe it's all unnecessary pressure in order to deconstruct this society that we kind of created this and to change things. I mean, look, if you look at the 70s was a time of revolution. And I do think a lot of great things came out of the 70s where, there was war happening, there was anti-war movements, and hippies had long hair and they were saying, no, we're going to be anti-establishment. We went through a time where the parents to that generation were like, what's happening in the world today with these long-haired people that are, disrupting society? But it was a necessary, disruption to get to another place. And here we are at another evolution of society where, the pendulum has to swing over to the other side, and it's uncomfortable for everybody. And then eventually you'll get to this balance of this feminine and also masculine energy kind of working together as opposed to one force being overthrowing the other,
I see it like a ayahuasca ceremony playing
yeah,
out on the planet.
yeah, yeah,
People taking the medicine. It's
yeah,
like,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
there's people spewing over here, like all around you.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you've elevated your frequency and you've done a little bit of, conscious and awareness work or inner healing,
And
you
sometimes you just want to wrap yourself in a
after.
bubble and go, I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to participate in that toxicity, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's the key, I think
Yeah.
the key is like your ayahuasca journey. It's like if you've gone into that state, you have protection. That's the
Mhm.
reward of love and joy and peace while the chaos is going on around you. So it's like a big ayahuasca dark night of the soul playing out on the planet right now. And what comes after that? The rebirth, right?
Yeah.
So the growth. When we go back
Well,
into
I'm looking forward to that part. Can we just fast forward to that part? Because that's where I'd love to get
yeah,
to.
I know. And there's so much talk about how things are going to play out, and people trying all these different ways to help humanity. So I think the fact that people, even back to your point about the 70s, the people who were disrupting the status quo,
Mm.
they were often dabbling in a few substances, right? They were smoking
Yeah.
their weed, or they were having their mushrooms, or whatever else they were on. And when they moved into those states, more often than not, the realization they come to is we're all one. We should come together in unity and harmony. Where
Mhm.
we don't like the idea of this war, or the Vietnam War at the time, when we're going all the way over there and fighting with one another, and this isn't right. And they had their chants. All we're saying, give peace a chance. And the establishment's going, oh, they're causing so much trouble. But really,
Yeah.
they might be in an elevated states where really they're just seeing things for what they really are.
Yeah.
And the use of these substances and are helping people to get enlightened outlooks on things has been actually well documented through history, and
Mm.
on the hieroglyphs of Egypt, there's pipes depicting the use of the blue lotus flower, and the priests smoking the flower to connect to the gods and to connect to the afterlife and to this wisdom. And in most jungles around the world, or tribes of the desert and etc., when you think about it, almost all of those little tribes and those jungle people all worked out a way to somehow get themselves into an elevated state of consciousness. They believed.
I do think that there's other ways though, because I've found that because I have high tolerance to things, like I've tried the, mushrooms and the ayahuasca, and I've also found that like breath work that can also, without any kind of substances, get you into different conscious states just as powerfully.
Yes.
I also find that there's a system that I've found recently. It's called Sense AI, and it's a it's like a brain training mechanism. You just like wear it. It's a wearable device. It's got three little connectors to your scalp, and you wet down the scalp where it connects, and it kind of comes with this app, and it sends signals to your brain, and retrains your brain, like certain areas that are lighting up too much, certain areas that aren't lighting, because your brain is just a electric source. It's like a computer. And so a lot of times when you're stuck in patterns, it's because your computer's stuck in a loop, you know what I mean? And so I do think that these electric signals act like the same as like drugs go in, and they kind of are sending electric signals to your brain, and they're lighting up certain areas of your brain, which just create different frequencies to allow different frequencies to come in. So this one thing, and I don't get paid by them at all. I sought them out. I'm just using it because I find it fascinating to like play with the brain space. But it's called Sense AI, Sense.ai, and it's kind of cool. It comes with this app, and you can it's like going to the gym for your brain. And
No, I
so
love
it can also, like, there's boost levels. So if you have to have a meeting or something, it's like you can use it for 20 minutes, meditate with it, and it's like having a cup of coffee where it kind of like stimulates your beta. And then there's other moments where it'll stimulate your alpha if you're trying to, you want to relax and just kind of like, so instead of utilizing like marijuana if I want to relax, or, trying to experiment with certain drugs that, I have a day that I have to get to and I can't be on, this device kind of does it in a natural way that kind of stimulates your brain. Anyway, if you guys look it up, check it out.
How are you finding it? Do you see, is it a perk
Yeah,
after
I mean,
done
I've
that
been
program?
using it for just a week now, and I do feel like it when I come out of the meditation, it's like meditating with a substance, you know what I mean, that allows me to either get into a more relaxed state or come out of it feeling like, oh, I feel a lot more energized right now. So it does kind of work. And then so the boosts are really great because there's like 7 different boost levels of things that you could, if you immediately need something. But the training of your brain is where you want to go with, and you only need like 15 minutes every 3 times a week. So you put it on. I mean, I want to try and use it more, because then it'll also remind me to meditate. So
Yeah.
I get a 2 for 1, because I'll meditate for 15 minutes while I'm doing the brain system thing, and your eyes are closed and it does its thing. So, but I'm going to continue playing with it. I'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah, awesome.
That's really interesting. That's great
Yeah.
to hear. And I love the idea, by the way, of 2 for 1.
Yeah.
It's like if you've got to listen to some, motivational or educational or inspirational information, you may as well be
Yeah.
at the gym, or driving the car or doing something else, so you can do the 2 things at once. So I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying there by that. And this is ways, that we can incorporate things into our daily practice, to assist us moving forward. Earlier in our chat, you talked about that. It's like, how do you implement this sort of stuff into your day-to-day life? If you have a breakthrough, or, because sometimes you can have a great meditation. You could get really deep, get some connection, get some breakthroughs, and then the next day, have a really rotten day, and you feel like, all that wonderful enlightened feeling you had the day before is completely gone, and you might have even been worse than the day before because of day-to-day life. Little things like this are ways that we can help bring ourselves back up, right?
That, and also awareness, you know, being aware is the hardest thing, right? Because we all fall in this trap of like the day goes by so fast, and then they're just moments in time, and then these moments in time compile. But like when you become aware of those moments, and I'm, you know, I'm saying it out loud because I need to be more aware of it, because it's just so easy to get sucked into the illusion all the time. But the more you're aware of being aware, you know what I mean? Oh, and I used to play this game, you know, hey, I'm aware of cooking lunch right now, you know, oh, I'm aware I'm putting water in, and just saying I'm aware of separates me from what I'm actually doing. So it's almost like I'm studying myself, because like I'm talking with my hands right now. I didn't notice that until I just put awareness on it. You know, I have my leg crossed. Did I do that? I didn't, you know, I didn't sit there and consciously do it, but now I'm aware of it. So now I'm sitting up straight. Oh my God, did I just sit up straight because I was self-conscious because I was talking about my leg? And then you start, there's a difference between being self-conscious and being conscious. You know what I mean? Because when you, the more consciousness you put on yourself, the more aware of yourself that you are, the more you start to realize the patterns that you have.
Mm.
And so just being able to, you know, be aware of the thought when it comes in. And though, do I, oh, that's an old thought. I don't want to have that limited thought of, you know, believability anymore, belief, that limited belief. I don't want to have that. What if I thought this, you know, wouldn't it be nice if I thought this, you know? And again, you can't force things. So I like to use the wouldn't it be nice sentence. Wouldn't it be nice if I had this? Wouldn't it be nice if I had that? Because it's a gentler thing than I want to think this, you know, stop thinking about the pink elephant. I need to think this. But if I'm like, wouldn't it be nice to think of a mountain lion? Now I forgot about the pink elephant, you know, because now I'm kind of, you know, focusing on this other thing gently. And so just playing in the space of awareness all day, I think helps, because then you're just kind of focusing in on what you can focus in on, and all you can focus in on really is your perception of the world and yourself, you know. I think that a lot of times people want to fight over truth, you know, and that's the hardest thing. Like, well, what's the truth anymore? But there's a lot of truths. Like if I held a ball and on one side it was orange and the other side it was blue, and I held it where I was seeing orange and you were seeing blue, we would fight over that all day. But if we both kind of looked up and saw, oh, half of it is orange and the other half is blue, I see where your side is coming from. And now you can see why I thought it was orange. Then we can laugh at that. But there's a lot of truths out there, and there's a lot of degrees of perception of truths, and where my truth is 100% my truth and your truth is 100% your truth. And how can we see a truth that kind of lives in both of us, and stop fighting over it? And those are the things I think about during the day, and try to have more space for other people. Also, I've really worked hard on not being so offended anymore because of that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's easy to go, oh, this person believes that. They're ridiculous and they're insane, and you know, they're wrong. But you know, if you give them space to either be wrong or give them space to go, well, maybe, you know, what is their point of view and what is the truth behind that? And you know, so just trying to find the compassion for others, or like you know, the judgments of others. You know, I think when someone makes a judgment on you or me, automatically we get so offended by it because a part of us believes it. You know what I mean? Uh, like I give you an example. I don't know what these thumbs up or thumbs down are.
Yeah.
What are those?
We're not doing it. It's some sort of automatic thing on the
I don't
Zoom.
know how
I'm
to-
not sure.
Yeah, so I didn't even know what that was, and I saw a thumbs up on yours. I was like, "Oh, they're liking what they're saying," and they saw a thumbs up on mine. I'm like, "Well, who doesn't like what I'm saying? What's going on?" Automatically, I got offended for a second. Then I was like, "Oh, well, whatever. Whoever got offended, that's their truth, and that's my truth." But I had to go through that process because right away I was like, "Did I offend somebody?
Yeah.
Is somebody upset?" In the meantime, it's this weird Zoom thing that doesn't even have a meaning.
I
You know
think
what I
what it was, you were talking about something and it was like going along the lines of, yeah, that is pretty bad, hey. And it
Yeah.
wasn't even a judgment, but it's so
Yeah,
funny
and
how
so
we
here we
are quick
are,
to
like
judge the judgment.
that silly thing. Perception is everything, right? Because that thumbs down had no meaning whatsoever. I gave it meaning when I saw it, like, oh God, I offended somebody. Somebody doesn't like what I'm saying. That's rude. Those three things entered my mind while I was talking. And then I had to go to myself, it doesn't matter because what I'm saying is my truth, and that's okay. And at the end of all of that, that thumbs down had zero meaning. I gave it all of that meaning. So that's what like if someone's like, I don't like your blue hair, and you don't have blue hair, it means nothing to you. But if someone says, I don't like your hair, a part of you believes like, oh, my hair's not pretty. And maybe they're right. And so the critique of the other person is your greatest teacher, because they teach you what you're not comfortable with and what you have, the way you look at yourself. Because if you look at yourself with love and you look at yourself like, I love myself, and if somebody else doesn't like what you have on, or doesn't like your hair, or gives you a thumbs down, it's meaningless. If I go to a grocery store and some person who's unhomed is screaming at me, gibberish, I don't take offense to it because I don't know that person. And I think that they're kind of maybe crazy, and I have zero idea what they're saying to me. But if I went somewhere and somebody online said something negative about me, I might take that and go, oh, maybe they're right. And maybe I'm not good enough. And maybe I don't feel good. And so people get offended because of not what the other person says, but because of they might believe that what they're saying is true. And so the self-love that one has for themselves can fix that. You know what I mean? If you really work on your self-love and work on going, I'm my authentic self, it doesn't matter if somebody gives you a thumbs down, doesn't like your hair, doesn't like the way you said something. It's impenetrable to me because I sit with my truth, and I love myself, and it's not an ego thing. It's a thing of like I said, if they said I don't like your blue hair, it would be just as meaningless, because I don't have blue hair. So I have to believe that what in myself and what I'm saying and who I am. And then it doesn't matter what that other person's saying, because that's their shadow work. Maybe there's a part of me that they don't like because it reminds them of something that they lack or want or don't have.
People judging what
Yeah.
is inside of them, right?
Yeah, it's the
So-
judgment comes from a side of them. And if I let it affect me, then it's coming from a side of me, it's coming from the side of me that I need to work on. So the critic is and your enemy can be your greatest teacher, right?
Yeah. Everyone's a shaman. Everyone's
Yeah.
teaching us. We're all students, really.
I love that principle, though, of being the observer, the observer of what's going on, and the observation of the meaning that you're giving things in life, which so often neutral. Like, it could be the best day of your life or it could be the worst day of your life. It depends on how you're looking at it. Like, some people say, oh my goodness, I lost my job, that's the worst thing that happened.
Yeah.
And you ask them 2 years later and they're like, actually, it was
the best thing that
because
happened.
then now I've started my own business and I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I never would have done it.
I'll tell you a funny story I read recently or I saw a video of. This guy was from India, and he said we had no rain there. And when rain came, it was a blessing. And we prayed for rain because when we would get fruit and vegetables and, we could eat, Then he moved to England, and it was very rainy there. And he loved it because everything was so lush and green, And then he came to America, and when he got to America, whenever it was raining, people would say, oh, it's miserable. It's raining outside. It's terrible. Oh, what a horrible day. And he thought to himself, well, how is it horrible? I grew up loving it. I grew up praying for it. And then I went to a society where they hated it. And it's all perception. So you can take one thing where somebody's like, they look at it one way and you look at it from another perspective. So it's a shift you always have to kind of shift perspective. I love the motto of whatever happens in your life is working for your best, higher self. So whatever happens is like, oh, this is going to work out great. You lose your job. Oh my God, this is great news. It's going to work out great. Because you're putting it out there that everything happens for you, not to you. Because you can live in a victim mentality and you could just be like, oh God, that sucked. And then you're drawing more things that suck. Oh, that sucks. But if you want to see red, you'll see red all day. If you want to see blue, you'll see blue all day. If you want to see, that these things are happening for you and good things are coming out of them, you'll see that all day. And the other thing I love is when you live in gratitude, it doesn't allow you to hold space for negativity. If you ever try to be in a bad mood when you're living in gratitude, you can't. If you're living in gratitude, you can't be depressed. If you're living in gratitude, you can't be angry. Like if you want to ever shift your consciousness quickly, go to gratitude. Oh, I lost my job. I have 2 limbs, 2 hands, I have 2 arms. I'm healthy. Gratitude. I can go out and I can conquer the world with that. There's somebody sitting around with no arms, no legs, in a wheelchair, and that it still has happiness. I've seen videos of a man that has no arms, no legs, in a wheelchair, and he's leads seminars, and he's an incredible human being, and he swims, and he has a wife, and you look at that and go, that's gratitude, you know. So people always look at what they don't have, but then you're going to get more of what you don't have, right?
Exactly.
So look at what you do have and live in gratitude. And these are all things I'm saying to myself as well, because as I'm saying them, it's not like I'm some guru who sits there all day. It's just like, oh, I'm so at peace and I live in gratitude. These are things I have to consciously work on every day, every day.
It's all in your soul though. Like you're fully just channeling it all through, speaking effortlessly. It's like so beautiful to watch you just talk about the real things, you know. Thank
Well,
you.
I feel like I have an understanding of it, and then it just, like you said, it becomes integration and practice. How do you, how do you find gratitude when you lose your job? How do you find gratitude when you stub your toe? How do you find gratitude in those moments? But it's a practice, you know. But the game is a really interesting thing, because if you wake up in the day and you say in the morning, you say, today I'm going to play a game of gratitude. No matter what comes my way, I'm going to play this game of gratitude. And then when you stub your toe, you remember, okay, I'm going to live in gratitude. This is the hard part of the game, but I'm going to live in gratitude.
I
I'm not,
love this.
you know
It's
what I
like
mean?
a
Because
game.
again, like games are fun to play, and the universe loves games, and I love to play games. Who doesn't love to play a game? So I try to make things games, and then you remember them quicker too, because like, the game of like awareness, I'll play that game. Like, oh, I'm aware I'm talking to you guys. Oh, I'm aware that I just moved my hand. Oh, I'm aware that I'm having my hand on my hip. I didn't even put it there. Like, who put that hand there? It's bizarre. You know? Like if you start to realize what your body's doing, something like you just scratched your head. Did you mean to do that? Were you
Are you
even
aware
aware
of
that you
that?
put your, you're like, who the hell just did that? I scratched, you scratched your ear, but I bet you consciously didn't do it or were aware of it. And then it becomes this game of like, oh God, who's moving my body right now? And it becomes such an interesting thing to pull yourself from this being of in the game to this awareness of playing the game.
Mm.
You can find yourself in the awareness of playing the game, then it becomes I feel like you can move mountains then. It's like because things aren't as effective. You're not as affected as the anger. Now you're aware of the anger. Oh, that really made me angry. Why? That thumbs down really made me feel uncomfortable. Why? Oh, because I thought somebody didn't like what I said. Oh, well, okay. Well, what doesn't matter what they say. It matters what you're saying. And you have that consciousness thought. And then at the end of the day, you realize that the thumbs up was just a computer glitch. And you're just
Yeah.
like, how silly was I? And then you laugh at it. You know what I mean? But that thumbs down taught me that I still need to work on self-consciousness of wanting to offend people. Why do I feel that if what I'm saying might offend somebody, that I have to be cautious or careful? Like, shouldn't I just be able to speak my truth? And then wherever it lies on people. And that would be a wonderful thing to work on and to have, so now I'm aware of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I love it. These things are happening for us to find the root cause. Me and Pete talk about this. It's like everything in our day is happening for us.
yeah.
Everything's working out for everyone as well. And it's like, but you have to catch those glitches to find the root cause. So we often
Mhm.
dig, because we work this out, like you've got to dig to the root cause to find the pattern, to disconnect it, to love it all, right?
Yeah.
And that's the full circle. So it's like, as simple as that thumbs down, it's like it could be threaded down to a deep root thing from your
Yeah.
childhood, and it's
Yeah.
perfect because now you're going to go and explore that.
Or practice, working on that. Like, don't be offended at speaking your truth. That's something I should be, you know, I think in today's world, everyone's afraid to speak their truth because they're so afraid that they're going to be, thrown out of the village for saying something, that they believe in or a truth that they have. And it's like, there should be room, to speak truth and to you have your thoughts changed on things. And that's called a debate. So it's tricky though. Like you said, it's kind of like we're all under this this ayahuasca, part of the ayahuasca where it's uncomfortable for everybody, and we're going through this, doing a lot of shadow work, and I hope that we can all come together to rebirth soon. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thanks so much for coming on our podcast. Elevated Conversations is all about these types of
Good
topics, just
talk.
letting it all flow
Yeah, I
through,
had a great
channel
time,
through
and
like-minded people.
like I said, like for me, talking about this inspires me too, because like even things that I understand theoretically, I know I need to continue practicing, so it's great to have these conversations just to, even when you feel like, okay, I'm at a place where I understand certain things, you're always searching, you're always growing, you're always learning, and you can always work, a soul, your energy is always shifting into growing, into learning more things. I don't think there's ever a place where you stop. And that's why I think maybe we all reincarnate if you believe in reincarnation, because it's like you have to continue growing forever. You just continue having these experiences forever to learn different parts of yourself. I think part of me wanting to be an actor is like me wanting to explore different parts of myself, because I get to experience all these different people and emotions and lifetimes all in one. So it's an accelerated learning process. It's a wonderful job to have, to be able to explore all these lifetimes in one.
So good. So Peter, what projects are you working on? Where can people find you?
I have several movies coming out, and I have a movie that I'm starting and a TV series that I'm writing. But honestly, I'd rather at this point not pitch projects. I want to leave it at just that. If people want to follow me on Instagram, they can find out what I'm doing. But honestly, this conversation has been so pure. I love to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And if other people want to find out what I'm doing, go to my Instagram at Peter Facinelli, and they can find out all the projects I have coming out, and I like to try to make stories for everybody, so you'll find one that you like. But this has been such a lovely conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Peter.
Peter.
Great to chat to you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.